Hello everyone and welcome to Fellowship of the Spirit. The precept that we are going to address today is the day of the Lord, the Lord's Day. The day of the Lord, the Lord's Day. A lot of Sunday Christians that worship on Sunday say that they're worshiping on Sunday because it's the Lord's Day, it's the day He resurrected. But the Lord didn't resurrect on Sunday. He resurrected on the Sabbath right before the sun went down, because the Lord's days go from evening to evening. And the prophecy of Daniel had to be fulfilled that he died in the midst of a week. In the midst of the week was both a literal week, a Wednesday, and a prophetic week, 3.5 years into his ministry. So when the Lord's day go from evening to evening, when he died and was taken off the cross right before the end of Wednesday at evening, you've got that evening and Thursday morning is one day, Thursday evening, Friday morning's 2 days, Friday evening, Saturday morning, 3 days, right before the sun went down, he died and was taken off the cross. But it wouldn't matter even if he did resurrect Sunday morning. The law cannot be changed unless the lawgiver gives an ordinance to that law, which is Christ Jesus. And he never changed the Sabbath day, the day of worship. So what we're going to do today, just quite simply, we're going to show you what the book says is the Lord's Day. And we're going to start this off in Amos, the 5th chapter. And I talked way too long. Amos 5 and verse 18, brother. Go ahead. 5 and 18.
Woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord. So what end is it for you? The day of the Lord is darkness and not light.
The day of the Lord is darkness and not light. Go ahead.
And if a man did flee from a lion, and a bear met him, or went into the house, and leaned his hand on the wall, and a serpent bit him.
Nothing but woe all around you is the day of the Lord. It's not a day you want to be a part of. It's a day of drama. It's a day of wrath. It's a day of darkness. Go ahead, brother.
Shall not the day of the Lord be darkness and not light? Even very dark and no brightness in it?
Even very dark and no brightness in it. Let's go to Zephaniah, the 1st chapter. Go ahead a few books to Zephaniah. Zephaniah. And we're going to go to Zephaniah 1. And brother, pick it up at verse 14. 1 and 14. Go ahead.
The great day of the Lord is near.
The great day of the Lord is near. Go ahead.
It is near, and hasteth greatly.
Uh-huh.
Even the voice of the day of the Lord.
Even the voice of the day of the Lord. So that great day of the Lord, the day of the Lord is near. Go ahead. Pick it up at the top of 14 again and go ahead.
The great day of the Lord is near.
Uh-huh.
It is near, and hasteth greatly. Even the voice of the day of the Lord. The mighty man shall cry there bitterly.
Go ahead.
That day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of wasteness and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness.
Not a day that we want to take part in. Go ahead, brother.
A day of the trumpet and alarm against the fenced cities and against the high towers.
Oh, we don't want to be a part of this day. Let's go to Acts, the 2nd chapter. Acts 2. Acts 2. The day of darkness, the day of gloominess. It's a day of wrath. Acts 2. And brother, we're going to read one verse. Acts 2 and one verse, verse 20. 2 and 20. Go ahead.
The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before that great and notable day of the Lord comes.
And the sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before that great and notable day of the Lord come. Let's go to Revelations, the 1st chapter. Revelation, the 1st chapter. We got to find out what this day of the Lord is. Revelation 1. Revelation 1 and verse 10, brother. Go ahead.
I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day and heard behind me a great voice as of a trumpet.
So now John says he was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and that he heard behind him a great voice as a trumpet. So we're reading about the day of the Lord, but now we have John in the Spirit in Revelation, and the whole book of Revelation is the Lord's day. Let's see what this is. Go to Revelation 6 and pick it up at verse 12, brother. 6 and 12. Go ahead.
And I beheld when he had opened the 6th seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood.
What did it say in Acts the 2nd chapter? The sun would be darkened and the moon would be as blood before that great and terrible day or notable day of the Lord. And now John is in the Spirit on the Lord's day, And in the middle of the Lord's day, this is what he's seeing. Go ahead and continue, brother.
Verse 13, and the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs, when she is shaken of a mighty wind.
It's that very same period of time. But let's go get some other witnesses on this. Let's go to Matthew, the 24th chapter. The day of the Lord is the Lord's day, and it appears to be his return. Matthew, the 24th chapter. Matthew, the 24th chapter. Matthew 24. And brother, pick it up at verse 29. 24 and 29. Go ahead.
Immediately after the tribulation of those days
Immediately after the tribulation of those days, go ahead.
shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light.
The sun's going to be darkened, the moon won't give its light. Go ahead.
And the stars shall fall from heaven.
Uh-huh.
And the powers of the heavens shall be shaken.
Oh my goodness, this is the same period of time. This is the day of the Lord, or what Revelation calls the Lord's day. This isn't a day to worship. This is a day to hope you don't take part in. Go ahead and continue.
Then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory.
This is describing the return of Jesus. One more verse, brother.
Verse 31, and he shall send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet.
That last trump, go ahead.
And they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other.
Let's go to Mark the 13th chapter. Mark the 13th chapter. Let's see what Mark has to say about this day, about this period of time when the sun's not shining, it's darkened, and the moon isn't giving its light. Mark 13 and verse 23, brother. 13 and 23. Go ahead.
But take ye heed, behold, I have foretold you all things.
Uh-huh.
But in those days after the tribulation, the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light.
Mark is giving the same account of Jesus saying the same thing that Matthew heard. Go ahead.
And the stars of heaven shall fall, and the powers that are in the heaven shall be shaken.
And then what?
And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory.
And what's he going to do, brother?
And then shall he send his angels, and shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from the uttermost part of the earth to the uttermost part of heaven.
Let's continue. Let's go to Joel, the 1st chapter. Let's see if it's prophesied anywhere, what we're reading about over here in the Gospels and in Revelation. Joel, the 1st chapter. Joel, the 1st chapter. And brother, we're going to pick this up at verse 15. Joel 1 and verse 15. Go ahead.
Alas for the day of the Lord is at hand, and as a destruction from the Almighty shall it come.
Alas for the day of the Lord is at hand. John said he was in the Spirit. When he was seeing all these things in Revelation, it was the Lord's day. So the day of the Lord is at hand, as a destruction from the Almighty shall it come. Go to Joel, the 2nd chapter, and read verses 1 and 2, brother. Go ahead.
Blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord cometh, for it is nigh at hand.
So that Lord's day again is called the day of the Lord. Go ahead.
A day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness.
Uh-huh.
And the morning spread upon the mountain.
Go ahead.
A great people and a strong. There hath not been ever the like, neither shall there be any after it, even to the years of many generations.
So this is a day that nobody should be looking forward to. There's never been one before like this, and there won't be one after it, even to many generations. Let's go to the 3rd chapter of Joel, and let's pick it up at verse 13, brother. Joel 3 and verse 13. Go ahead.
Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, get you down, for the press is full. The fats overflow, for their wickedness is great.
Uh-huh.
Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision. For the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision.
For the Lord's day is near in the valley of decision. Put in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. This is talking about Jesus coming to set up his kingdom by force, coming to take his kingdom and set it up. Because when he's got all the armies of the world gathered over there in the place known as Armageddon, in the valley of decision, and he comes back, they're not going to just give him the earth. He's going to come back and he's going to slay people. That's what Revelation's all about. All the trumpets of God, all the seals of God. That last trump being the gathering of the people and Jesus actually returning to set up his kingdom. Tell us what you're at and continue, brother.
Verse 15.
Yes, sir.
The sun and the moon shall be darkened, and the sun and the stars shall withdraw their shining.
We read about that in Revelation, in Acts, in Matthew, and Mark. We're in Joel reading about it. We're going to end in Revelation reading about it. Go ahead.
The Lord also shall roar out of Zion, and utter his voice from Jerusalem, and the heavens and the earth shall shake. But the Lord will be the hope of his people, and the strength of the children of Israel.
But the Lord will be the hope of his people and the strength of the children of Israel. Because it was his directions on how to gain right back to the tree of life that the nation of Israel is going to be following at this time. And the Lord's going to wipe away their iniquity. He's going to allow them to serve him in righteousness and to take part in his kingdom. Go ahead, brother.
So shall ye know that I am the Lord your God, dwelling in Zion, my holy mountain. Then shall Jerusalem be holy, and there shall no strangers pass through her any more.
Now this isn't talking about strangers sojourning with Israel. These are strangers that don't want no part of God. Go ahead, brother.
And it shall come to pass in that day that the mountains shall drop down new wine. And the hills shall flow with milk, and all the rivers of Judah shall flow with waters, and a fountain shall come forth of the house of the Lord, and shall water the valley of Shittim.
Go ahead.
Egypt shall be desolation, and Edom shall be a desolate wilderness. For the violence against the children of Judah, because they have shed innocent blood in
This
their
is
land.
when all the nations get their payback. Right now, individuals are coming to the Lord from all the nations of the earth and from Israel. At this time, the Lord's going to gather the entire nation of Israel, take some of them into the wilderness and plead with them. Those that are serving him are going to get their reward, and the strangers, the individuals that are serving him now, will get their reward. And at that time, all the nations of the earth will get their punishments and get their rewards. Go ahead.
But Judah shall dwell forever, and Jerusalem from generation to generation. For I will cleanse their blood that I have not cleansed, for the Lord dwelleth in Zion.
The Lord's Day. Let's go and we'll end it here. Revelation, the 14th chapter. Revelation 14. Revelation 14. Revelation 14. And brother, pick it up at verse 14. 14 and 14. Go ahead.
And I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle.
In his hand a sharp sickle. Isn't this what we read about in Joel, the 3rd chapter? Go ahead, brother.
And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud, Thrust in thy sickle and reap, for the time is come for thee to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe.
And this description right here, sisters and brothers, is the Lord's Day, or the day of the Lord. So the Lord's Day is not a day of worship. It's not the first day of the week. The Lord's Day is his return, when he comes back to set up his kingdom by force and give his saints reward for their service to him now in his flesh. So sisters and brothers, we appreciate as always the opportunity to rightly divide God's word, and hope you got something from these scriptures.